Chapter 1 Continued. One day around sunset, I heard the honking of a car outside my door. I ran out to see who it was and found two of my new friends, a married couple, waving at me from their Jeep. "Get in! Let's go for a ride." They were both Spaniards. The husband was serving in the Air Force around here and had a modern camel. "Where to?" I asked as I was climbing into the back seat of the Jeep. "The desert." "For how long?" "A few hours, then we'll come back." Even though there was sand all around us, they felt the need to break out and go somewhere far away, I guess. We followed the tire tracks of another car into the boundless desert. The sun was sinking, but it was still very hot. I felt a bit sleepy and my eyes glazed over for a moment. The next thing I knew, wow, just incredible. 200 meters ahead was a big lake, flat as a mirror, with a few trees nearby. I rubbed my eyes. It felt like the car was flying towards the lake as fast as it could. From the back seat, I gave my friend who was driving a smack on the head. "A lake, yeho! Do you want us to die?" I screamed. He ignored me and stepped on the gas. I looked at his wife, who had a strange smile on her face. The car wasn't stopping, and the lake was drawing nearer and nearer. I hugged my knees and let them drive on. I had heard that there was a lake not far into the desert, but I hadn't expected it to be here. Lifting my head slightly, I saw the lake was still there. I hugged myself tightly again and covered my head. The car drove for another 100 meters or so before coming to a stop. "Hey, open your eyes!" they shouted. I raised my head and saw an endless wasteland. The setting sun stained the entire land blood red. A wind blew sheets of sand into the air. A horrible, frightful scene appeared before my eyes. Where was the lake? There was no lake. The water had disappeared, and there certainly weren't any trees. I gripped the car seat tightly, afraid to make a sound. It was like a terrifying story from the Twilight Zone come to life. I jumped out of the car, kicking at the ground and then touching it with my hands. It was all real. But how did that lake just disappear? I hurriedly turned to look at the car. The car hadn't disappeared. It was still there, along with my two friends who were doubled over with laughter. I get it. It was a mirage, right? My hair was still standing on end after I got in the car. Pretty scary. How come it looked so close? The mirages in the movies always look so far away. Oh, there's so much more than mirages. Take your time to get to know this desert. There are weird things aplenty. Afterwards, whenever I saw something, I didn't dare trust my own eyes and always had to go and touch it. Of course, I couldn't tell other people that I'd probably been spooked by a mirage. I'm short-sighted, is all I would say. I have to touch things to be sure. I was washing clothes with the door open when the landlord's goat ran in and ate the only flower I'd managed to cultivate with fresh water. Well, it wasn't really a flower, but the two green leaves had been growing quite healthily, and the goat ate them both up in one bite. I chased it out to give it a good whacking and ended up falling over. Furious, I ran next door to yell at the landlord's son, Bashir. "Your goat ate the leaves that I planted!" At 15, the landlord's son was the oldest of the children. How many leaves were there? He asked, looking down his nose at me. There were only 2 leaves, and he ate them both. You're mad about 2 leaves? Why bother? What? Are you forgetting this is the Sahara, where not a blade of grass grows? My flower, forget about your flower. What are you doing tonight? Nothing. I really had no plans when I thought about it. I'm going to capture aliens with some friends. You want to come? A flying saucer? You mean there's a flying saucer coming? My curiosity was piqued. Yes, that's right. Muslims shouldn't lie, kid. He held up his hand and swore that there really was one. There is no moon tonight, so it will probably come. Yes, count me in, I blurted out, feeling excited and scared at the same time. We're going to capture them, huh? As soon as they come out, yes. But you should wear men's clothes, local men's clothes. I do not want to take a woman there. Whatever you say. Lend me a turban and a thick coat. So that night, I walked with Bashir and his group of friends for nearly 2 hours. We reached a place in the desert where there were no lights whatsoever, then sprawled on the ground. It was pitch black all around us. The stars twinkled coldly like diamonds. The wind hurt like a slap in the face. I adjusted my turban to cover my nose, only exposing my eyes. Then, when I was nearly frozen to death from the weight, Bashir suddenly struck me. Shh! Don't move. Listen. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It sounded like the rhythmic hum of a motor coming from all directions. I don't see anything, I cried. Shh, don't yell. Bashir pointed. In the sky not far from us, there was a flying object lit up in orange, slowly coming our way. Even though I was forced on the flying object, I was so nervous that I dug my hands into the sand. The strange thing flew in a circle and moved away. I exhaled a big breath. Then it started flying back, still slow, but lower in the sky. The only thing I wanted in that moment was for it to go away quickly. Capturing aliens, my foot, would be lucky if they didn't abduct us. The UFO didn't descend. I lay there, limp and unable to move, for a long time. In spite of the intense cold, I was sweating all over. It was broad daylight by the time we got home. I stood in front of my house and took off the turban and coat to return them to Bashir. My policeman landlord was just getting in. Hey, where have you guys been? When Bashir saw his father, he ran back inside like a dog with its tail between his legs. We're back, I replied to the landlord. We went to see a flying saucer. This kid was playing a trick on you and you fell for it? I thought for a second. It was real, I told him. An orange object, flying slowly. It wasn't a plane. It was very slow and flew low. The landlord contemplated this for a moment. Many people have seen this thing, he said. It has been coming often at night for many years. No one can explain what it is. I felt a twig hearing him saying this. So you really believe what I saw? Señorita, I believe in Allah, but that thing in the desert sky truly exists. Even though I'd been awake and freezing all night, I couldn't get to sleep for a long, long time. Another night, I was leaving my friends after having eaten roasted camel and it was already 1 in the morning. Just sleep over, they say. You can go home tomorrow morning. I thought about it, but 1 a.m. wasn't that late, so I made up my mind to walk. An uncomfortable expression came over the man of the house. We can't see you home, though. No need to worry, I said to them, patting my boots. I've got this. Got what? He and his wife asked in unison. I raised my hands dramatically and, in a flash, revealed a shiny knife. The wife let out a yelp. We all laughed for a good while. Then I bid them goodbye and walked off on my own. It was 40 minutes to my home, not a long journey by any means. The annoying part is that you had to pass through two big cemeteries on the way. The local Sahara don't use coffins. They wrap people who've died in white cloth, place them in the sand and put a stone tablet on top so the dead people won't sit up in the night. There was moonlight that evening. I sang the military song of the local desert corps at the top of my lung while marching ahead. Eventually, I realized it might be better if I didn't sing, as it would make me an easier target. There were no lights in the desert, apart from the morning wind. I heard only my own footsteps. The first cemetery emerged crisp and clear beneath the moonlight. I walked past the seemingly endless lines of graves with great caution so as to not step on anyone in eternal rest. The second cemetery posed more difficulty, situated as it was on a slope. To get home, I had to go down a hill where the dead people were densely packed beneath the ground. There was practically no path to follow. Not far in the distance, a few dogs were sniffing here and there. I knelt down to pick up stones to throw at them. The dogs howled and fled. I stood on the hill for a while, looking in front and then behind me. I felt scared because no one was around. But if a person did come out of the wilderness, I'd be even more scared. What if something came that wasn't a person? Wow, my hairs began to stick up one by one. I didn't dare let my imagination run wild. Once while I was almost out of cemetery, what do you know? There was a shadow moving on the ground before me. At first, it was sprawling forward, then struggling up with its arms raised toward the sky, then falling back to the ground. A moment later, it was struggling up again, then falling again. I kept calm and bit my lip, standing still to collect myself. Eh? The shadow was also no longer moving. Looking closer, I saw that it was scraps of a cloth around a body. It was clearly something that had crawled out of a grave. I crouched down, my right hand feeling for the handle for the knife in my boot. Gust after gust of strange, heavy wind blew. The wind carried me in a trace, closer to the thing by a few steps. The thing struggled to rise again under the moonlight. I glanced behind me to assess the situation. It would be an uphill retreat, hard to move fast, better just to charge forwards, so I hesitantly took a few steps. As I neared that thing, I screamed and quickened my pace, flying past. Who have expected that when I screamed, the thing also started letting out short screams? Ah! In a voice that was much more miserable than my own. After rushing forward a dozen steps, I froze and came to a stop. It was a human voice. Looking back, I saw a man dressing in local garb, standing there looking panicked and helpless. Who are you? How shameless can you be, hiding out here to scare a woman? Have you no integrity? I wasn't afraid now, cursing this guy in Spanish. I, a thief? Come to rob graves in the middle of the night? Have you? I don't know where I got the courage, but I strolled over him to take a look. What a surprise! It was some kid, not even 20 years old, his face covered in sand and soot. I was praying at my mother's grave. I was not trying to scare you. Still won't admit it. I gave him a shove. He was close to tears. Señorita, it is me who you scare me. How unjust! You scared me. I scared you? If only I found it absolutely ridiculous. I was deep in prayer when I heard something singing in the ground. I listened more closely, and then it wasn't there anymore. Then I saw the dogs howl and run away. When I put down my head to pray again, you appeared at the top of the hill with your long flowing hair. I was scared half to death, and you came rushing at me, screaming. Now I was beside myself with laughter, staggering around, stepping above the dead people. Once the laughter subsided, I told this guy, "Such a scaredy cat. Yet you come out to pray in the middle of the night. Go home now." He bowed to me and walks off. I realized that I had one foot on his mother's left hand. Looking around, the moonlight was gone, but I thought I saw something crawling over by the edge of the cemetery. I cried out quietly and told myself to run. I ran all the way home in one breath, bursting through the front door. I leaned my back against it, catching my breath, and looked at my watch. Somehow I had made the 14-minute journey in just 15 minutes. Just as my friend had said, there are weird things aplenty in the desert. Take your time discovering it. Tonight, I'd really had enough.